It is the set of sails, not the direction of the wind, that determines which way we will go. I came across that quote right there by Jim Rohn one day, and somehow OnePlus as a company came into my head. At the time, I didn't quite understand why though. But when I was making this review, everything about OnePlus sort of clicked. You see, with the departure of Carl Pei, the direction of OnePlus as a whole is in question. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he was the co-founder of the company and was without a doubt instrumental in the success and direction of OnePlus. When you refer back to the quote, Carl Pei was the set of sails. This really makes me wonder if the OnePlus 8 Pro is truly the last great OnePlus device we will ever see. Honestly, a lot of that depends on a lot of factors, and more importantly, how the OnePlus 9 Pro is perceived by us, the consumers. But for now, let's talk about my favorite Android device of 2020, the OnePlus 8 Pro, and see how well this device has held up against the test of time. Now that we are in 2021 and the iPhone 12 hype has sort of died down, I've switched back to the OnePlus 8 Pro as my daily driver, and I have some thoughts. First off, there are some glaring issues with this phone that has become prevalent over 8 months. This is no ordinary Android smartphone. It's one of the most underrated, overlooked Android devices I have ever used. But today I wanted to share with you guys my experience by using the OnePlus 8 Pro for about 8 months. And there are also some things that I don't really like about this device that I would like to see addressed in the next iteration. To be quite honest with you, I think the OnePlus 8 Pro has aged well over time. It resembles a flagship that's still worthy the price of admission, with its unibody aluminum design encompassing a unique looking camera layout. The front and the back of the device are very similar to what we've seen before with the OnePlus 7 Pro. The OnePlus 8 Pro looks really good. I do appreciate the symmetry of the camera layout, the phone feels great in the hands, and it has a narrow enough form factor where you can easily reach the other end of the device using one hand. Something that does bother me is that I do very often rock this phone naked, and the camera bump makes it so that the phone does rock when it's flat on a table. Now, OnePlus has always been a step behind the competitors when it comes to camera quality. With the OnePlus 8 Pro though, I feel like OnePlus took a significant leap forward. They even beat out some flagships in 2020 when it came to camera comparisons. In 2021 though, it's going to struggle to keep up. But for myself, the camera system is more than good enough. I've never really been a picture person. Sure, I do take the occasional photo on my smartphone every now and then, but for me, I value performance and software over good quality cameras. With that being said though, the 8 Pro is capable of some decent stills. The primary lens has a good large sensor with a natural depth of field, so you do get some nice bokeh in some of these shots. If you are taking pictures of objects close up, the plane of focus is quite slim. Some stuff is in focus and some parts of the object are blurred out. There is also a 3x telephoto. This is partially a marketing ploy. A 3x telephoto is the same as a 12 megapixel camera with a 2x optical zoom. It's just more cropped in for you. A running joke in 2020 was that a lot of these OEMs decided to slap on a 2 megapixel macro lens and flex the fact that their phone has a quad rear camera setup. But the 2 megapixel macro lens was quite honestly useless and just a gimmick to sell phones. However, on the OnePlus 8 Pro though, we do have a 5 megapixel macro lens, and it's quite honestly terrific. You are able to get some great looking macro shots. It's great for close-up stills, and over these past few months it has grown on me. It's easily the most fun I've had snapping shots on a smartphone. I rarely talk about the selfie camera, mostly because I don't use it at all. But for the sake of this video, I did snap a few selfies here and there, and what I found is the detail and the dynamic range is pretty decent. The camera tends to overexpose in bright outdoor conditions, but overall though it gets the job done. The front-facing camera is missing 4K, which now a lot of smartphones do have. The max resolution on the 8 Pro is 1080p, so if you absolutely require 4K for vlogging, this camera just won't cut it. The OnePlus 8 Pro has a very controversial display. Depending on who you talk to, their experience will differ. For myself, the displays have been good, but it's not perfect, which is weird because the OnePlus 7 Pro, it didn't have very many display issues. The 8 Pro is rocking a bright curved display with a Quad HD Plus resolution. Aesthetic wise, the display looks cool, but when it comes down to using a curved display on a daily basis, that's an entirely different issue. You do experience the accidental touch every now and then, and sometimes I find the curved edges to be unresponsive. This is a pop-out display. I don't mind it, but I thought the pop-out camera on the OnePlus 7 Pro did it way better. OnePlus did decide to go this route to give the OnePlus 8 Pro an IP68 water-resistant rating. We can't talk about the OnePlus 8 Pro without talking about that 120Hz refresh rate. This phone is impressive because you could rock this phone on a Quad HD Plus resolution with a 120Hz turned on all the time. There's no variable refresh rate system holding you back. You may be asking, okay, that's cool, but how's the battery life? I'll talk about the battery in a little bit. OnePlus is known for good software support, and over time they have added and improved upon a lot of issues with the OnePlus 8 Pro. One of the major updates was an always-on display. Finally, you can see the time, notifications, and even the amount of time you've unlocked your device right on the display without ever having to go into your device. There are still some weird persistent issues on the software front that can be improved. For example, if you have vision comfort enabled, it takes a while for it to kick in every time you unlock your device. It drives me crazy, to be honest. Auto brightness is still not the best. I find my device struggling to adapt to the brightness of my surrounding environment. So for now, I just turned it off altogether. The 8 Pro does use an optical fingerprint scanner, and this fingerprint scanner is one of the fastest I have ever tested. But you do have to wake the device to use the fingerprint scanner, which does make the overall process a bit slower in my opinion. Now, OnePlus devices have always been known for stellar performance, and the 8 Pro is no exception. Equipped with the Snapdragon 865 and 12GB of RAM, this thing is an absolute animal. It's a very fast and smooth device. In fact, I did do a speed test between this and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and man, that was a very close speed test. Some users have experienced bugs and whatnot, but for me, for the most part, Oxygen OS 11 has ran really well. OnePlus is very good with updates, and they've supported the 8 Pro properly over these past 8 months. I have no complaints in that department. Let's talk about the battery life. How well has the battery held up over 8 months of usage? For the most part, it's been alright. But this past month, it's dwindled significantly to a point where I'm now getting around 5.5 hours of screen on time per day. Keep in mind though, this is with the 120Hz refresh rate turned on and on a Quad HD Plus resolution. I can obviously lower the refresh rate and the resolution to get better battery life, but I chose not to, simply because that's not the way you're supposed to run a OnePlus device. I don't know about you guys, but to me that just feels wrong. It feels like I'm settling, which is something that I don't want to do. You do get wireless charging and a very fast 30-watt OnePlus fast charger. During the pandemic, I've been home all day and I could charge this phone in about 15 minutes and get enough battery life to last me the entire day. 5.5 hours of screen on time is enough to get me through a full day's of use. But when I got the phone initially, I was averaging around 8.5 hours of screen on time, which to me was just insane. It's a known fact that over time, battery life does degrade, so 5.5 hours after 8 months seems pretty good to me. I almost forgot you do get reverse wireless charging. I don't use this feature very often. In fact, I don't remember the last time I've used this, but I can see this feature being useful in certain scenarios. The thing is, reverse wireless charging on the OnePlus 8 Pro is quite slow, even slower than its competitors like Samsung. Overall though, in 2021, the OnePlus 8 Pro is still a very good buy. You can get a used OnePlus 8 Pro in good condition for around 500 to 700 Canadian dollars. At the end of the day, you are still getting a 2020 flagship with the imprints of Carl Pei. So yeah, I would still recommend it despite some of its shortcomings. It's a good smartphone that most people will really appreciate. You do have to evaluate your smartphone habits and ask yourself this question. Do you want a smartphone that prioritizes performance over cameras? For myself, that's a no-brainer. I rarely take pictures, and if I do, it's probably of some sort of documents, work notes, so I always look for performance over a good camera. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. The OnePlus 9 Pro is set to release soon, and I feel like I have a lot of thoughts on it just based on the recent rumors. I will leave you guys with my OnePlus 7T review, which I made a while back. It's a really good watch. So if you guys are undecided on the OnePlus 8 Pro or the OnePlus 7T, give that video a watch. As always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to flex with your tech.